All right. Helen, welcome to the Black Tower. I'm your host, your guide, your brother, the Sorcerer Armonisaur. All right. Helen, welcome to the Black Tower. And I have been waiting to do this for 3 weeks now. And I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the Black Tower. And I'd also like to make a warm welcome to my guest, my brother of the arts, my dear friend, John Vermilion. What's up, brother?
Hello, brother. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing good, man. Uh, we've been, we have been talking about this for a while, and
Hi, Solomon.
well, we've been talking in general for a while. This is not our first rodeo, but this is our first rodeo at being able to introduce you as not just somebody who does spiritual workings, but actual now as an author.
Yeah.
Brother, that is fucking crazy. It's like I just met you like the day before yesterday, like I just met you last week.
It's
Now all of a sudden, and I mean, you were nowhere near like, writing a book, and then all of a sudden, bam, you got this big, huge tome, and it's just full of these powerful images and symbols and just working.
well, I mean, it's not like it came out of nowhere. It was 13 years. I mean, 13 years total, I would say, but obviously I didn't work on it like every day for 13 years. There's a lot of time, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of like, screw it, I don't want to do it, kind of put it to the back burner. Reworded it, reworked it. A lot of it was actually based on my notes. You know what I mean? So it was like reworked notes over and over and over again. Reworked telepathic relays or channelings that I had, and eventually it just literally, like, once me and you kind of started talking and all that kind of stuff, that's when it really started coming together. And when it came to be, I asked Spirit, I was like, well, what should I do with a publisher? Should I get this published? And they gave me the answer. It was like, don't worry about it. And next thing you know, that's when, Anne Sophia Press came about.
Well, see, I personally,
cool how it turned out.
I feel honored and I feel blessed, not just knowing you, because man, like I've said on here 1,000 times, and like so many people, even the ones in chat, you're, dude, my brother Francis Hutter, he's saying greetings to you. Solomon AD is like Vermilion is a bro. I got to work with him the other day, but
Solomon's great. Yeah.
I feel so blessed and so honored to actually, to have you as a friend, to have you as a brother, just to know you.
Likewise.
And and it is so amazing that, like I said, it was just like last week or some shit, and we're sitting there and and you're telling me about aliens and about, light structure and about vibration and all this other stuff, all these things that nobody else, they either come across as imbalanced, conspiracy theorists and all this other stuff. And here you come along, man. Dude, you're putting this shit in fucking pure occult sense. And I'm sitting there going, holy shit, And like I've told you, you're the only person that I've ever met that when you say aliens, I'm not running the other way.
Well, it's funny because, when people like get in the whole conspiracy thing, and sorry if my chair squeaks, I need some oil, but it's funny about the whole conspiracy thing. A lot of people that get into that, they do get kind of crazy and imbalanced with it. And I only got into it because I started having experiences that made me question it, and after my death experience, coming back from that, I had a lot of questions because this world did not feel right. Like the planet did not feel right. I felt rebirthed in a sense. So I was like, there's something going on here that I can't quite put my finger on, but something's dramatically wrong. And I started having some pretty out there experiences that led me to, decide to research conspiracy. And it's easy to get down a rabbit hole and start believing everything. And I'm not that kind of person. I only know it based on experience. So I'm not going to sit there and talk about, crazy conspiracies, but I have had experiences that made me believe that certain things are definitely factual.
Yeah. I mean, and it's, and I don't want this whole interview video being construed in that direction because it's not about that.
Nope.
You bring the logic.
But why I brought that up is people forget about the occult story behind it. Really, I mean, there's a huge occult story with like secret societies and the practice of these secret societies that everybody's so afraid of.
You
There's
know,
a
I was proud of you.
there's knowledge to it. There's you know, a lot of knowledge to be held in Freemasonry and all these different types of practices. What you do with it, I mean, that's up to you. And there's tons of different entities and beings out there that follow very similar spiritual understandings. Might not be able to use it the same way as you do or differently, but this is how you kind of, you know, interact with them on different levels.
Yeah, you know.
And some of them are wrong. I'm not gonna lie, some of them are horribly wrong and can be led down a pretty bad path and confusing path.
Yeah. Well, you know, going with the whole being honored and blessed and all that, you know, let's get this started. First off, want to do a shout out to all our viewers. Thank you, each and every one of you, for making it here tonight. I realize it's a Thursday night, and you know a lot of you have to get up and go to work. So thank you for being here. We will try to keep this at about an hour to an hour and a half, something like that. If you can't catch all of it tonight, that's fine. Just catch the rest of it later. For tonight, we're going to be talking about Asaya Luxa.
Yep.
John's book that he just wrote that he's having published by Eon Sophia Press. The link is below in the description, along with how to find him on Facebook for anybody who's interested. Also, for tonight, this is going to be open forum. I want to have as many questions as possible.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
I could literally just sit here and watch. I mean, I'm a pretty content person. So I mean, I go off on how people ask questions. I mean, I don't really ever know what to talk about. Definitely I'll talk about the book en masse though, because I think a lot of people have, you know, kind of like, what is this? It's different than most grimoires. I can tell you that much.
Well, I will say this, for any of you out there who are sensitive energy wise, the name of his book is Asaya Luxa. Have I got that pronunciation correct?
Yeah, Asaya Luxa. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, for anybody out there, all you have to do is just speak those words, Asaya Luxa, and be sensitive to the energies that it raises. And this gives you a great idea of where John's coming from energetically, because his workings, you can see words and you can see symbols and you can see pictures all day long. We all know this when we pick up grimoires and magic books and all this, that, and the other. But John has created a masterpiece where everything from the words that are written in it to the symbols to all of it, to the seals, all of it is made to evoke an energy out of you, an energetic response to attune you and to align you with these different spirits, entities. So it is like a living text. It really is in that sense from just what I've seen of it. Vermilion's work is a standard. Everyone, his approach is not only unique, but effective as hell and heaven combined. Agreed, Solomon?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, let me explain the whole Asaya Luxa thing. That I actually have a bunch of jewelry that says it on it, because when in meditation, my counsel, they talk in English to me because I understand English, but sometimes I'll get to that, Francis. You can get it on Eon Sophia Press. There's going to be a pre-order that I'll talk about. It's going to be a good pre-order. Where was I going with this? But yeah, so Asaya Luxa in meditation, they'll talk to me in English because obviously I speak English, but they'll use a certain dialect to me that is vibrationally sound to me. So when I hear those words, I feel them on the vibrational level, and I just kind of know what it is, you know. Asaya Luxa, when it came through, I felt almost like a body of light in a sense. And as the days went on and it kind of sat in, I was like, okay, what does this mean? And more communication with them, I basically was told that it meant, you know, created by God in a body of light. And that makes a lot of sense when you look at, you know, the creation.
Can you explain that a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, so the created by God in a body of light, it means that we are itself is a light body. You know, you got a lot of New Age teachings that teach you, oh, you activate your light body, you know, you have to gain a light body, all this stuff. No, you are a light body. You just have a condensed physical body made out of light. You are light. And as you understand this and work with the language of light, which is color, which is archetypes or sigils or any kind of symbols, but also in tone, or like those vowel sounds and that intoning vibrational sound, you're working with a certain language. And when you use that and apply it to yourself, that has a different relation to how you work as a light body. It controls every aspect of you, mentally, physically, emotionally. And the book basically takes you on a journey of pretty standpoint. I mean, I pretty much kick it out there that you're not going to understand a lot of this unless you know that you are like a god in a sense, you know, like you are a god. And applying the information, it takes you from the lowest aspects of yourself up to your highest aspects, and then explains each level of yourself through the chakra system in relation to the angelic levels that your body is actually associated with on that frequency. So it connects you straight to what I call the angelic hierarchy, or a lot of people call the angelic hierarchy, but I do it in a frequency base, starting at the lowest up to the highest. And it just connects people to their own vibrational pattern within their own angelic self.
Oh yeah.
And that's the body of light, and that's the guitar light body is what I call it, basically, because that's what came through in meditation as well.
Yeah. Brandon says the creation in Genesis, let there be light metaphor, and I put on there exactly, only described and explained in a non-religious sense. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Because you know, as many conversations as you and I have.
God is not light either. You know, people always like, God is light. No, it's not. You know, the void created light. You know, light cannot exist without the dark first. And God is definitely a void.
Right. God's going to come and take us all away one day. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. You got to have a little bit of a humor with all this. But, you know, that's one of the things I love about you, man. You know, it's like months ago, you were, before I had the surgery, remember? Mm-hmm. And you and I were sitting there talking, and I had been having, one of the things you and I connected with is energy working. Not just necessarily of the chakras, because the chakras may be the base of where these energies come from.
Yeah.
But you were showing me how once you've opened, if you're used to your chakras being opened and being, you know, continuously active, that, you know, this energy that flows, that you can shift it, that you can shape it in a sense. And you were walking me through one of your meditations, visualizing of color and sound vibration. And I remember, you know, doing it. And for anybody who's used to not necessarily being high, it's not like that. But have you ever had one of those days where you just feel energetically just real well, like you're, you know, like you're just on, like your body is perfectly healthy, like it's just, you know, on fire, like you have plenty of energy and it's all natural. That's the way it made me feel, you know. And, you know, back then, you know, I could tell from there that, you know, you were onto something. And then as we talked, it wasn't that you were onto something, it's that you have been doing this for quite a while. You know, what ultimately helped you decide, hey, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to put it out there and see if it works?
I never wanted to be honest with you. Like I said, it was a collection of notes, and I spent years and years and years in meditation. Like I'd meditate for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and I lived a very strict spiritual life, and not spiritual in like your religious sense. You know, I would almost be like Buddhist. You know, it came from a very Buddhist standpoint, but based on my experience, it was also very fringe, you know, because I had a lot of unique alien and ET experiences that most people don't. So I had to wrap that all into this understanding. And when I just started writing, it wasn't like me writing. So to me, looking at myself as an author, you know, yeah, it's cool. I used to write all the time when I was a kid, and I was like, oh, I would love to write a book, but I never really thought in my head that I would. And it didn't come till it was more of them working through me. And I call them my counsel, because I had a very good relationship with these beings, and I used extreme discernment, you know, especially at first, because you just want to question everything, especially the way they were coming at me, and it's like almost too good to be true, you know, type mentality. And if it wasn't so synchronistic and consistent for me, I would have had a lot more doubts. But it wasn't until I really was like understanding what was going on, that it kind of started writing itself.
Yeah.
And over the years, if I didn't work on it, I'd definitely be getting pushes. You know, I'd be getting pushed from spirit hardcore. I remember one day I was sitting in my house, and I was just watching some podcast, and sitting there, I was eating food and knew I probably could have been doing something better with my time. And I remember one of my teachers manifested in my room and right by my computer. And he's just kind of like gesturing to the computer. And I was like trying to block it out of my head, you know, I'm just like, leave me alone, you know, block it out, block it out, block it out. And it just kept appearing. You know, he just kept doing that. And finally I was like, oh, fine, or whatever. I got up and I started writing, and then all of a sudden it just started flowing and flowing and flowing. And,
yeah. We have our first question here, though.
Yeah.
Randy Carpenter asked, John Vermilion, how much does color have to do with the frequency work to deal with chakras?
A lot. It's big because the best way that I can say to explain the chakras is imagine you are a clear prism. Light is not white. Light first starts out as clear light, and any color is a refraction of clear light from that initial blackness or void. That's what I meant, Ethan, by void. I didn't mean like God's a void, but if you're gonna look at it as color, it's almost like a colorless thing. And the light refracts, you start getting color. You want to look at yourself as like a clear prism, and when that clear light hits you, that rainbow color you see is technically your frequency. You can look at somebody's chakra field or look at your own field, and maybe your solar plexus might be orange, you know, it might be a dark yellow, maybe it shouldn't be, you know, and you see those different colors, and applying consciously those colors to those areas will dramatically suggest to your subconscious mind to start attuning those frequencies back into place. If you look at, you know, frequency in a color chart of what we see, you kind of have to use the visible light spectrum as the frequency base. So obviously red being the lowest and up to the highest, but they are kind of specific colors. Like a fully balanced chakra is actually a specific color. It's not just red, it's more of a pale red. Like almost like if you took like a bright red and started adding white to it in a watercolor, when you start getting that pale watercolor red, that's really the color that it should be. All the way up to your heart when it starts getting a little darker green, like a medium green. So depending on the areas, depending on the frequency of the body and the mental structures and what kind of mind patterns and emotions those areas are dealing with.
You know,
I hope that answered that question.
You know, I think at that particular question and the way you described that, let's go into a little bit about what you and I were just talking about before we actually started this live stream.
Brandon has a great question, actually. I just talked to somebody about when chakras are removed. The whole thing about removing a chakra, you really can't, because you do have physical nerve endings that are in relation to the electrical field. If you want to look at your body like a battery, you do have nerve ganglions that do come out of your central nervous system, and they do attach to various levels. So you can't exactly remove the chakra per se, but you can nest the energy into one. And a lot of people are saying that they're removing chakras and starting just going to one chakra. What they're really doing is understanding that they can nest them. And this is actually a really good way to start doing multidimensional travel, is nesting the chakras.
Oh yeah.
It's a very advanced practice. I mean, there's people that can do that. They're like, you know, yogis, and
but normally they're advanced, adept practitioners who have been doing this for years. You know, not normally somebody who's just, you know, come along and they're like, you know, been doing this for like a year, 2-3 years, and it's like, you know, I don't have any chakras. It's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
I like how you described though that it's called nesting. You know, before we go a little bit more in that, I want to go back to what we were talking about before we started this, and we were talking about, you know, we were talking about cosmic existence. You remember, and you and I, we were talking about, you know, whether these entities or spirits come to you in the form of aliens, grays, greens, reptilians, all these different aspects, or whether they come to you as angels, demons, this, that, or the other, you know, so-called the masks or the forms in which they take, depending on, you know, the individual psyche.
Right.
Let's stick with the cosmic aspect of it, where we were sitting there and we were talking about how, you know, how from, you know, me, for example, you know, I realized that, like, you know, one of my favorite deities or beings of all time, Lucifer, his cosmic form is freaking phenomenal, because it's like pinpoints of lights that create this cosmic body. And I was saying how a lot of spirits appear to me like that before they take their mask, you know, in a lesser form, so that it can be more readily used. But in following the concept of what he was talking about with the chakras, let me see if I can go back and read this because I want to make sure that I get it right. When it says how much does color have to do with the frequency? So let's talk frequency for just a minute because I want to go a little bit more in depth in this. So all these beings or whatever and their frequency gives this cosmic form. We ourselves have a cosmic form as well. What are your thoughts about your cosmic form versus frequency, and not necessarily density as upon the different planes, but just in general, and how this can relate to chakras and how to best utilize them, most specifically aimed towards the work of your book, for example?
Right. Well, I mean, the chakra system is a way that you connect to those frequencies, and a lot of people do chakra work, and you see a lot of new age mumbo jumbo and certain like Hindu philosophies on it and stuff, and you're like, they're just visualize this and visualize this, or just meditate on this area. I do a different type of meditation. I'm not so much just let your mind go and go blank. There's certain things that you can visualize, like anybody that does sigil work or any kind of magic, focus is key. And what I find cool is when you actually take those typical lessons of the chakra system and apply it to certain symbols or sigils in the correct colors and placing them in the body is how you're going to be connecting to these various levels or densities within the cosmic universe. Obviously, the denser, the more physical based, the higher, the more cosmic based. When I see an entity, I see a lot of the cosmic entities, I guess you could say, or as I call them, the ETs. I can't call them angels because I've discussed these things with these beings. I ask questions.
Continue with your thing there. I mean,
I definitely ask questions, and when they come off to me as ETs, I have to ask questions. And like, okay, well, you seem like an angel to me. You're just radiating light. And when I see you, you might have a interesting gray-looking form or something, but you're radiating this immense spiritual energy. It's really how they can become the most clear to you. So it's when I seen those beings, you're working at a cosmic level, but you're not working on a lower astral level, as I call. When you're working with more of like, what I call like the demonic entities and whatnot, they're generally more lower astral. They're easier to work with, and you can have a lot of great success with them, especially bringing things to you in your physical life. Cosmic world doesn't really work that way. It's more about elevating yourself to the highest point to be able to kind of meet them halfway at least, so there's definitely a lot more self-work, and that's where the chakra work I feel comes in handy. And I experienced a lot of help with that kind of work, because coming back from my death experience and then having all these abduction experiences and all these crazy dreams that I didn't even know where to start, and the synchronicities on top of it, I felt like I was living in a constant dreamland. The only way I could start was psychologically, and I was led in various dreams of doing it based on the chakra system. And when I was led to the chakra system, I was kind of like, well, this is kind of hokey pokey, but had a lot of weight to it. And it wasn't until I started visualizing the colors and the certain symbols and the right intents and the understanding of it that I started having success with it. And it's about really analyzing yourself at the deepest levels, from your darkest, deepest parts, like your root chakra and those anger issues and the fear and all that kind of stuff, all the way up to your connection with God and the angelic self of your own being.
Yeah, I was going
to connect you. You can look at yourself as like a piano. Each color is going to be differently, a different vibration. If you know anything about music, the musical scale is a great representation of vibration. And you have one whole octave. Color is the same thing. You only see a certain level of visible light. You don't see ultraviolet. You don't see infrared. When you can see those, and you can psychically see them sometimes, it's like those colors flip. They become different shades. And when you start working with different shades, each color has a frequency. Blue isn't just blue. You have a dark blue, you have a light blue, you have a navy blue. Each blue has a different tonal frequency to it. So if the chakra system is out of balance, those tones and those colors are shown.
Yeah. Let me throw out something out there at you, brother. Okay, so I really wish that, you know, that this book had been available back 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because when I first awakened to magic and was first working, and I was working with intuition and, you know, working with spirit guides and so forth and so on, and aspects of self and all this, I was led down a more cosmic path towards, you know, something greater than just this dense plane and the energies that make it up, and the entities that come and go, and the, you know, and all this other stuff. And I think it's interesting that, you know, despite the only option I had was working with Golden Dawn or Thelema style stuff of, you know, working through the spheres or through Kabbalah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was the only thing that was available to be able to use like that, because, you know, there weren't too many books out there about spiritual evolution and all this other stuff. Because one of the things that I found early on is that when you are resonating and vibrating at your highest frequency, your God self,
mm-hmm.
for example, it increases the abilities and the effects of anything you do on this level. Say you're trying to summon a spirit, or you're trying to, you know, draw money to you, love to you, you know, any of these other things. And that's why I'm a fan of your work, because, brother, it's like you know, finally somebody's wrote the book on how to do this without having to employ this or that belief system or that belief system or this or the other.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I intended it to be, you know, and even from the get-go, when I even first started reading it many years ago, you know, they were pretty honest with me that this is kind of like almost like a handbook, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a handbook. If you ever see the movie like Beetlejuice, you know, they have the little handbook for the life after death book. And I said the day to somebody, if I could just like meet every incarnating soul before incarnating, I'm hand them this book and be like, hey, just apply this and go about your own way. I don't care, go off of the path, don't do your other things, but these are like a foundational things that if you apply to yourself, you're going to be coming at life in a very different light, in a much stronger light in your self-worth. It's
in this current age of the occult community, I've noticed, I'm not trying to interrupt you, by the way, forgive me for that.
I agree, Brandon.
In the current occult age, you have people that are fine bouncing between the two polar opposites, or, you know, straight left hand, right hand, combining the two and all this other stuff. But there are a few of us out there who are like, you know, the keys, the true keys, are a lot deeper than just, you know, what we're finding and what we're, you know, getting out of these different things. And sometimes not everybody has the ability to communicate with these higher vibrational beings to be able to get true knowledge, true honest to goodness, workable knowledge that increases their own person, their own self, their own core, and all this other stuff. And so I was curious, you know, you've been doing this for so long, you know, and anybody who sat there and talked to you, you know, you can tell the difference that you're dealing with somebody who is educated, but not in the sense that most occultists are educated.
Sure.
You know, like, for example, when we were talking about, you know, Mark Allen Smith's books, and you're like, you know, you used them as gateways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this book that you come out, I swear it's a book of gates, but it's
a gateway into the self, big time. Yeah, it really is. And it's not about contacting spirits, you know, like I don't talk about my counsel much in the book. You know, there's like certain, you know, tidbits here and there mentioning them, but it's not about connecting to other beings. It's about connecting to the aspects of yourself and dealing with them. So it's really what I would like to call a psychological approach to occultism. That's not really, you know, it's not dependent on calling upon, you know, Marbus or, you know, Belial, or, you know, it's not about that. It's about calling on your inner powers of equal or even greater.
Yeah.
And the symbols that I use, you know, they do that. They connect you to that level, you know. And eventually when people use them, you know, I started out with different symbols at first, you know, being guided by other teachers and by other, you know, people that I've met along the way, and non-physically by, you know, guides. And you'll notice that you start working with things on your, you know, in your own way too. Brandon, the council, it was, I mean, you could look at it as me, I guess, or aspects of my own consciousness, but I do perceive them outside of myself because that's kind of how they've always presented to me. people that have done rituals that I've infused my council with that they could call upon have had success with it, and have had some pretty interesting experience with it. So I would say they are different and outside of me, but I've definitely thought about it being my own consciousness, but there's been things outside of it that have led me to kind of, you know, go the other route. But no matter what, I always kind of remain skeptical. But time and time again, I mean, it's just constant clarification. So, councils have certain numbers, like council of 9, 12 apostles, 72 angels. Yeah, the way they showed it to me was I'm visualizing it now, so I can explain it to you. If you visualize 12 separate lights surrounding a central point, it's, if you ever heard around 12 around 1. Not that there's 12 of them. There's technically, it's a larger council, but in a sense, it's a frequency base. So they're showing that the 12 frequencies are around the base 1 frequency. Just 12 lights around 1 light. As they showed it to me, I was the 1 light in the center, and there were the 12 around me. But I've definitely perceived them as more than 12.
Could you go into your book a little bit? What kind of stuff is in your book, brother? I mean, you know.
What I like to call basic, you know, breath work at first. You know, I really like to bring it through the basic steps, and it progresses as it goes. It's written in 3 books. The first part's like the gnosis that I've received, something that I've, you know, it's from my notes, it's from graphs that I've drawn. You know, that the first book doesn't have a ton of sigils in it. The second book is more about the practical application of like breath work, utilizing breath work like every day in your life. There's a daily ritual. The daily ritual really just aligns yourself energetically to your highest potential, whether, you know, it's not, I don't like using your highest self, it's your highest potential. Whether you do one better thing each day, it's fine, you know, but it's aligning yourself to that energy every day. Led by an invocation as well. It's a lengthy invocation, but when you do it, you definitely feel this like vibration come through you. And then from there on, it leads into a section of more advanced visualizations. And some secrets. I mean, the thing is, like, I feel there's a lot of secrets around there, because if people read the visualizations and really understand what they're doing, it opens up a really big pathway to understanding how you yourself can energetically do things. You know, whether it be healing, whether it be telepathy, whether it be projecting to a person by location, etc.
Oh yeah. What is so if I got this correct, it's 3 books in 1, yeah?
In a sense, yeah. It's like written in 3 parts.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I like the fact that you have it broke down like that, because one gives the standard you know, idea of where you as an author, as a practitioner, as a person comes from. Mm-hmm. And then the second part into like, you know, actual workings that are, you know, just breathing techniques. Because a lot of people have failed to understand how breath and energy and soul are all connected. Mm-hmm. You know, because, you know, it's a direct connection to how to empower yourself is through breathing.
It is. Mm-hmm.
And through numerical techniques and stuff like this, you know, each one has a different vibration, frequency, and reasoning behind it. Mm-hmm. You know, so, you know, I like how you've employed that in there.
Yeah, and I feel it kind of like progresses pretty well, you know, and there's some things in there definitely not to apply every day, and I mentioned that. The more advanced visualizations, I mean, the book 3 is more based on more of a ceremonial route. You don't even have to really do the ceremonial part, because you can just do it in your head with the visualizations. But I always felt doing the ceremonial thing and creating that ceremonial space is important. Definitely helps you align and, you know, center yourself to what you're doing. So there is that ritual work in the 3rd book. But what's really cool is doing that work and doing the visualizations. It definitely changes you energetically. So what I've noticed from people that have done it in the past, their dreams are weird. You know, they start having really unique, weird dreams that you just really don't understand too much. Their energy body starts to activate a lot more, and they have more experiences they're not sure of. They've definitely interacted with types of beings that they hadn't interacted with before and had a lot of questions with. That's kind of where the whole ET thing comes from. And what's cool is at the end of the book, there's a dream dictionary, color glossary, tools, numerology tools and stuff like that to really hone in the whole work to really figure yourself out. The Dream Dictionary obviously is not, you know, the end all be all. You know, that would take forever, but it definitely is pretty comprehensive, especially for what's seen in a lot of cult books.
I have a very important question.
Mhm.
Maintaining. So the maintenance of anything, like for example, you know, we have to watch over our own health and our own well-being and our own spirituality mixed in with our own physicality, and you know, or making sure that you know all the parts of ourself and our own alignment. If someone were to start doing the works out of your book, how hard is it to maintain? What parts would you say are important to continuously do? And which parts are things that you can just do as you know, as intuitively it comes to you that hey, I need to work on this or I need to work on that.
Definitely the daily ritual I feel is very important, especially certain aspects of it, especially doing the work, and some of the more advanced visualizations, like the one that I showed you that one time that you said it felt like it collapsed all your energy centers in, and you know, like it was, you were ringing for like 30-40 minutes even after it. You know, that one's in there but expanded on it a little bit, you know, and that's why the book's the way it is, you know, because if you're doing those kind of visualizations, that's happening to you energetically. And if somebody does kind of, you know, it has a lot of answers in it. You know what I mean? So but the daily ritual is kind of set up to be able to keep your energy body and your system locked. So those kind of things don't really happen and you don't go off a tangent and start having, you know,
what about materials like incenses, the types of incenses?
yeah, that's all covered in there. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, not hugely. I didn't get into like the amounts and all that kind of stuff. That's going to be in the next book for, you know, the deeper ritual work, and the next book's going to be smaller, of course. But this one is definitely a good, very strong indication of my work, and definitely all the incense and the scents are listed in there. You know, certain candles in the process and whatnot, and the certain, you know, engravings and the sigils to use, and the certain angels to use, how to do it, and certain invocations to, you know, anchor in those energies. So it's very usable, and that's what I like about it. You know, I had to reread it I don't know how many times in editing and sending back different copies, you know, and making sure everything was set in, and you know, reading it, I was like, oh wow, you know, I read it. It's like, you know, I look at it like I almost didn't write it, you know. So it's like it's interesting to see how well it is actually laid out for that. And I think it's going to be a great text for any practitioner, because I feel a lot of magicians and a lot of occultists miss the base of spirituality, and that's that self-preservation, you know, that self-care.
Yeah.
You know, this is your vessel, and you are a part of the vessel.
Absolutely. I've been noticing, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have. I've had a conversation with a few about this age, these ancient tulpas, egregores, beings, entities, deities, gods, demons, so forth and so on. They're waking up from what seemed like a slumber, and I noticed that even in the sense of what you're talking about, you know, we talk about preternatural intelligences and working with them, you know, and communicating with them, and all that really higher vibrational workings, and then how to bring it down into the lower realms to you know to accord greater change or greater effect towards the workings that we do on this plane.
Yeah.
I was wondering, did it feel like to you like these beings were waking up in the exact same way?
Like the ones that I'm working with?
Yeah, like did it ever come to you like, you know, that these were beings that, you know, you knew for a while, but at the same time, it's like, you know, in this change, like I was talking about with all these beings waking up, do you think that these predator intelligences became aware of that awakening and are what's, you know, coming in behind? Because you got to think of them as the masterminds, as the grand architects. And these lower vibrational beings are, you know, the way I like to look at it, and this may or may not be the truth of it, but so you have these grand architects, these higher levels, you know, they're like, okay, it's time for this to change, blah, 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 or for this to start to happen. And that in accordance with that build, it started to shake and wake up, you know, these other deities, these other beings, which are master forms or whatever of these not necessarily greater but higher vibrational entities. Do you think that it's in alignment with that, or do you think it's something else?
I mean, I think it could be something else. I mean, definitely think that's potentially a thing. You know what I mean? But like the energies that I work with, I would definitely not say they're waking up in the same fashion as others are. You know, when I started having open contact with them, it was very, you know, it was intimidating. It was very intimidating at first and very, very strong and very prevalent. But it was coming from almost like meeting a very, very powerful, you know, monk almost, you know. So it's, you know, that's a great question, man. I honestly don't even know how to answer it because I can see it from both levels, to be honest with you.
Well, I guess an easier way to say it, do you think that they woke up with in accordance, or do you think that they're the ones who were actually awakening these other beings? Because you,
Oh,
as well as I do on a cosmic level, there is this grand schemata design, if you will.
Ethan, I would say Ethan, I would say Ethan has it right there as we let them back in. It's not that they're, you know, waking up. It's like people are more open to it. And as people wake up, they are like, oh, cool. Like they're finally paying attention. We can interact on a different level. Look at them raising themselves up to us that we don't have to come to them. You know, and there are beings and there are entities that will love to interact and meddle around and on their beckoning, you know, and sometimes they're very powerful, but sometimes they don't always have the best, you know.
Yeah. You know, I go with Ethan Ross and Soror Tamori here. Ethan's saying we let them back in. Soror saying I feel like it is we who are waking up.
Correct.
I like to think of it that we are all waking up at the same time. Our waking up is not a reaction of an action of them, you know, waking up. You know, so it's not like that. But to me, I feel as if it's no different than breathing and moving physically.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're both combined. We're both mind and body at the same time. We're both mind, body, and spirit at the same time. Well, I think that it is a unison thing. It's like breathe in. Well, it's like the universe, the cosmic universe is breathing in, and as they breathe in, the effect or the visible sign is that this awakening or this movement or this, you know, this interaction between man and deity or man and spirit, if you will, for lack of better words.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to agree. I think you said it pretty well. I agree with what they're saying in the chat room there. Like what Ethan says, like I feel like they wake each other up. Like if the dead, they connect with them, would they not wake up their gods? In a sense, yeah. I mean, the energy's with them. You know what I mean? Just like your genetic memory too. You have all the memory of your, you know, genetic heritage too inside of you. So as you wake up, you also kind of take on healing their genetic side too. So it's all, that's what's great about the universe. It's all one big, you know, swirling thing, you know?
Yeah. You know, I'm digging the comments and stuff.
I like it.
But you know, let's get some questions in here. You know, like I don't know, how long have you been doing this, John?
I would say my whole life, and the reason I say my whole life is because I was a very active child, and I say active by I mean very awake kid. There's not many like 4-year-olds that like had to like, you know, I had to have crosses around me. I wasn't Christian. I didn't come from a Christian family. I didn't come from a religious family, but I like needed crosses around me everywhere I went. I needed them in my window. I needed them on my wall. I needed them everywhere. And of course, it's kind of weird for a 4-year-old to be like, you know, whoa, what's going on? You know, I need these crosses, and I'd freak out if I didn't have them. And then, sorry, I read the chat room.
I'm answering questions.
Yeah. But you know, I would have full apparitions. I had dreams of, you know, aliens. I didn't know what they were at the time, you know, and I would draw them. I would draw in these hieroglyphics, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was young, you know, I was kind of creative, and, you know, my parents were very supportive. They never thought I was weird. After, you know, my grandma, who I had very close ties to, died, I was very close to her, and she had full communication with me afterwards for many, many months. And that's when my parents were kind of like, oh, that's interesting, you know, that this is still going on. At the age of 8, 8 or 9, I don't know, I was pretty young. I hit my head really hard, and I had this out-of-body experience, which some people would consider an NDE. I would consider it an out-of-body experience. And where I was brought back to my body by a woman in blue. And the woman in blue said, "Hey, darling, it's not time. It's not time. You need to go back." And I didn't want to. And I remember standing over my body, looking down on it, like from another like portal almost. And she's like, "You need to go back." And I didn't want to. And I was kind of fighting going back in my body, and my physical body started to shake. And I remember coming back into my body and waking up, not having any memory of what really happened. I was kind of, I was kind of crying. My parents were crying. My friend was crying. It was just a very immense emotional period. And I was really confused. Got taken to the doctor. They said, "Oh, it's just seizures," and never had a seizure afterwards. Definitely not what I remembered. But my whole life I've been into spirituality and religion and occultism. It wasn't until when I had my death experience when I was 21 where it pretty much just blew open the gates. Which that's that itself. I mean, I can explain the whole death experience like it was yesterday, but it's a very, very long.
Like when I was younger coming up, the same way. I love crosses, probably not quite as intensely as you, like needing them everywhere. I remember coming up, I used to see eyes in the wall everywhere. And, and for a while there, I thought maybe there might be something wrong with me or something, or, just, the mind plays tricks with your eyes, stuff like this. But I always felt watched, and not like in a bad, creepy way, just, like I was being watched. And as I grew up, like these symbols of like crosses and things, they never held the religious meaning.
Yeah.
They always represented death, but they represented a type of death necessary for ascension, for evolution, for becoming a bigger, better, greater you, for lack of better words. Ethan asked a question though. What are your favorite entities or pantheons?
Oh yeah, I mean, if I'm going to work with an entity or an energy outside of my council, I really love working with Hecate or Heka. I just like that energy. Yeah, it's very dark to some, but I guess I'm not going to lie, I do definitely find some kind of home in that kind of darkness. I also really like working with the Arcturians. I don't really work with Heka a lot, but there's definitely some times where I'll work with her, and she's always been very inviting and very, she's great on Gnosis and any kind of magic you want to do. When it comes to the other things, I work a lot with the Arcturians. You don't hear a lot about them unless you pay attention to the New Age. Egregores, he talked a bit about the Arcturians, but they are an ET race that they definitely are workable. You can work with them. As Ethan says there, he's working with the Pleiadian sigil. Arcturians work the very same way, and a lot of my work is Arcturian based. Arcturians are definitely thrown out through it. I have a really, really good relationship with them, and they were kind of the first entity that really showed their true form to me without worrying about me being afraid of it. But them showing their true form actually brought back a lot of past lives that I was interacting with them in a past life manner. So it was a lot. It's like almost like a family, but they're very easily workable, and they don't work with everybody, but I definitely know that if people call upon them and, just the simple intent, they're pretty damn advanced. But yeah, when it comes to like Pantheon stuff, definitely like mainly Heka. I really do like Mark Allen Smith's work in general. I think a lot of the entities that he works with, albeit being very dark and very advanced, they're powerful. Yeah, the blue-gray aliens, exactly. Yeah, Brandon. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. Last ritual I did with Heka was interesting because when I always had this thing, I was like, do I work with my own current or do I work with Heka? And I always had this connection, and she pretty much set me straight. I mean, in simple terms, she pretty much bitch slapped me across the face and said, "What's the difference? The currents are the same." And a bunch of Egyptian symbology came up to me, and the lion races and the Lyrans, and I have very deep connection with the Lyran energy, if anybody knows what that is. I can definitely expound on Lyrans, but it's basically a very, very ancient race. They're just now coming back. What's that?
Feel free to explain that, because a lot of these are terms that, like I'm amazed, some of the viewers actually know what this stuff is.
It doesn't surprise me, to be honest with you. It's pretty, the ETs are definitely a thing, but there's a big difference between ETs and aliens, though. I mean, aliens are physical, ETs are interdimensional, so they're working on a different vibrational basis. There are physical beings from different planets. I mean, if you don't think that, then you live in a very small box. But life is abundance in the universe, but it works on such a vibrational continuum. There's so many levels. Yeah, she is stern but motherly. You're right, Brandon.
The reason I don't scoff entirely at what you're talking about that is because I've seen really weird things like brownies and stuff like that, that coming from a guy who doesn't really work with Fae or anything like that, to be witness to stuff like that that lies outside of my belief system. Who am I to say that, you know, that aliens or these other beings like that don't exist as well, you know?
Well, I consider demons extraterrestrials too, but they're different vibration of it. You know, there's good and bad, and if you were going to work with an extraterrestrial intelligence, working with the good ones is a lot harder to work with than the bad ones, because the ones that are, you know, benevolent, not interplaying with anything, they really don't care. You know, if you go to them and you raise yourself to them, they're going to interact and meet you halfway. You know, the more ones that like to intermingle, they're really easy to work with. And some of them are classified as demons, some are considered, you know, tons of different things. But a real ET, the higher vibrational ones, have a very, very hard time coming close to physical reality.
It's like Sorcerer Tamori here. There's a quote from Crowley: today we call them angels and demons, in the future they will call them something else.
Correct.
I've always believed that no matter what you, no matter how you view or look at something, another tradition or group of people or tribe or for whatever for that matter, that will view things completely different. You know, what we think of as demons, you know, there are still some tribes that look at them as land spirits or look at them as spirits that have gone. You know, I mean, just there are myriads of things. I mean, you know, and that's why I don't scoff at any of this. You know, I may not understand it, and I may have to be educated.
Well, I mean,
talk to somebody who knows what in the hell they're talking about.
Look at ancient civilizations, and there's definitely a reason why the same type of beings are shown over and over and over again. Look at Crowley's Lam. Look at him. That's a gray alien. You know, me seeing a gray alien, I have witnessed a gray alien. The first time I've ever seen a picture of Lam, I had a little conniption. I was like, that's a fucking gray alien. That's what it looks like. You know, now, did he call it a demon? Did he call it an angel? Did he, whatever you name it. But that general image, that they do look very much like that, at least some of them.
Absolutely. You know, I've seen things that I could never explain in a million years, you know. Like, for example, you know, you and I, we were talking about, and I was talking about, you know, angels and things like that. Well, when I was 13, I saw my so-called first angel, you know, in the angelic form, you know, and all this other stuff. But when I got older, I was seeing like beings that were made up of pinpoints of light, and I mean, it was an outline, it was a form, you know, via light, whatever. And some were denser, some were lighter, some mixed colors, you know, all this other stuff. And so my interaction with them was colored by that, for lack of a better word, you know, and changed, and just, you know, just made it apparent that, you know, things are not always as we see, and sometimes we don't see deep enough into a thing.
Right.
And so, you know, I've always felt like, you know, not necessarily like I'm the Grand Pumbaa and I know this, that, and the other. I've always felt good to be able to see a thing for what it really is, for its true form, as opposed to some self-imposed, because this author wrote it in a book 500, 800, 2,000, 3,000 years ago.
Right. And that's where I think, you know, when these, you know, entities and these energies contact people, or they contact them, the way they appear a lot is how they're kind of told they do. You know, they have this image of something that's in a book and all that fun stuff. So they have something to go by. Like I said, when these energies appeared to me, they took me by storm, because I didn't have anything to pinpoint. You know, when I studied demonology, I studied religion, I had these images of angels and stuff like that in my head. So when they appeared to me as something completely different, I mean, maybe they did that because they wanted to break open the programming that might have been there. But either way, my conscious mind did not, you know, put an image over it that was something familiar. It was very different. But it was familiar in a way that was that didn't take me back or I wasn't scared of. It was familiar to the point where I was like, oh, why doesn't this scare me? Like, this seems pretty normal.
Yeah. We have two great questions here. We're going to go one at a time. So Solomon asks, how did your families respond to your spiritual lifestyles? That's a question for both of us. I'm going to let you answer first.
Yeah, I mean, after my death experience when I was 21, I ended up moving back with my parents, or my mom and my stepdad. And they just welcomed it. They didn't really care. I had pretty open parents, and I come from a pretty psychic family. And so they didn't really bat, an eye at it. They just kind of let me do their thing. I had my own little meditation room that was set up like an ashram and ritual room. And they left me alone. They didn't question anything. So I have to say I was pretty blessed with that. They just left me alone. Good parents overall, I suppose.
Well, mine was a bit different. My father was tickled to fucking death because he done knowed I found God and had the Holy Spirit in me and all this other shit. And he didn't understand that I'm not religious, hadn't been religious, and was just, and though it may have came across in a religious tone, I was looking at it completely fucking different because I'm like, if all of existence is this, then mankind absolutely has no idea who or what God is. That's when I truly understood that, no matter how the religious are approaching this thing, I don't even think they fully get that, they've put the divine in a box. They've named it, sealed it, and said this is all that is.
Yeah.
Whereas people like you and I, we're experiencing all of creation constantly, but at the same time, we're doing it from another level of comprehension than most. And and then there are lots of other people out there who are experiencing it the same way in their own form and fashion. Thankfully, now I did have to. I did have a breakdown one time because I got tired of hearing this. And about wanting to become a preacher. And I mean, oh my goodness, man. For my family, for my bloodline, they've all been spiritual. They back it up with God, the Bible, and Jesus, and all this other stuff. But, they're just pure out spiritual, and they know things most people don't. They do a lot of things that are considered occult and magical. But they give all the credit to God. They feed the food of the gods, to an egregore or tulpa instead of taking it into themselves and becoming transmuted and ascending in spirit. You can't just give away that stuff to a being. Those key elements are things for you to feast upon. They're things that are, it's food for the soul, for lack of better words. And so I had a breakdown, and I straight up told my father, I was like, fuck God, and there was this great big thing about that. And finally, I finally told him, I was like, look, your way is fine, but it's not mine. I'm not going to be a preacher. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that, because where I'm taking this and where I'm going with it and the way it's being presented to me is not religious. You can either accept that or hate me for it. And so it took quite a few years for my dad to get cool with that. As far as the rest of my family, they are more like followers. They follow the stronger person in the group. I don't know how to explain that. So, and me being an independent person who's like, I have my own mind and my own way of being, they were kind of caught between, listening to my father or listening to me, because I was making more sense than my father was. But what my father was saying was more traditional. It's what people are used to hearing. So that's how my family reacted. The next question, give me just 1 second. I think I passed it. Brandon Carpenter, he asked some tips on getting to a halfway point.
Yeah, I was actually replying to that in the things there. So I didn't forget it. I was going to forget that one. I see it up there. Some people brought up prayer and all that kind of stuff. Those are some ways. I feel release work, and he mentioned it there, using emotional transmutation and removing egoic masks. That's a great way. And that's really what release work is. But also going down into the deeper releases of traumas that you may not have. Like, memory of, you know. And there's some work in the book that brings you back to those kind of regressions, going really deep, far back into memory, even on past life traumas and certain mind patterns that have maybe carried on from past life to past life, and now it's just embedded, you know. So it definitely goes far, but I think any of those kind of methods definitely help you bring yourself up to those higher exalted states and kind of meet that halfway point. Now, if they don't want to communicate with you, I mean, they're not gonna, you know, do it. So you can't always expect it.
Yeah. Brandon said something really interesting here. He says, I use emotional transmutation and removing egoic masks.
Yeah.
It was funny, you and I, we were talking about that before we started this thing, you know, about transmuting things of that nature. And I was referring to, you know, towards the whole, these beings appearing as lights, you know, their cosmic form. About a year and a half ago, you know, I came up with a crazy idea. We didn't get to finish this conversation because we had to start the thing where, you know, I was like, you know, the very first so-called demon or entity or whatever that I called or had summoned, you know, I was like, you know, I was sitting there and I'd given its incense and offering, and I was like, you know, if it's okay with you, you know, I would like to see the real you know, the cosmic aspect itself. And I didn't have a negative reaction from it. As a matter of fact, it was quite willing to work that angle, and I don't know why or anything like that. And so, you know, so I tried to look at it kind of like when you direct your consciousness to the astral plane and you see a spirit's form or whatever, and then take it up to higher vibration, and that's all I did. And the result was freaking astounding, because that's when I saw what looked like lines, like, you know how they're talking about on the astral plane, how you can see tendrils or things that you're connected to, or, you know, even the silver cord that directs you to your body.
Yeah.
You know, you can see all these different cords and strings and things. And I happened to notice that this particular demon that I'd been working with, or spirit in particular, I hate to use the word demon, I really do.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I understand that demon just represents a lower density being, but I think it's not necessarily it's disrespectful, but I think it's limiting to what these things actually can do and what they are. That's neither here nor there. So I saw this cord leading up, and it looked like this thing had like it looked like it had like 4 or 5 different forms. Like, you know, like if something was moving really fast, you know how it have like blurred images behind it? But it looked like it had that, and it all went to a higher form, and I was like, holy shit, I was right about that. Have you ever had any experiences like that?
Yeah, all the time, man. All the time, to be honest. You know, it's kind of cool because like a lot of my stuff comes in like almost like it's like a zip file. It's kind of weird. Like a lot of my experience will just like randomly happen, you know, like I can do a lot of ritual work and not have an experience happen, and all of a sudden just out of the blue something just happens, or a download just opens up inside of me, and I'm like, oh, that explains a lot. And especially with astral traveling, I've seen a lot of things, especially like the tendrils and the cords you see. You don't just see like the ones connecting their body. I mean, you can see those cords going to other things and people, you know, like walking around consciously. If I open up enough, I'm able to see, you know, more of the energy field. And when you're talking to somebody or other people, you can start seeing the cords that are actually being created just by their own energies. And it's, you know, that's when you're really aware of the astral and you're in it, you know, at all times. And you can go even beyond that. People emanate symbols, you know, you can get to the point where you start to see all the symbols that are emanating. And if those symbols are out of whack or not appropriate, those can also show imbalances within the energy field. And I love the comment that Ethan said about the DNA there.
Yeah, I was about to say, we're in the last 20 something minutes. Let's go into that. But go ahead.
I covered DNA work in the book too. Just a couple visualizations. I have a ton, like I told you earlier before we started the live thing, I have a ton of DNA visualizations that I've done over the years, and some of them are highly advanced, and I didn't feel okay putting them in the books yet because some of them it's a very long process for some of them, and it is really activating a large portion of your DNA. And you do get a lot of ancestral memory from that, whether that be you know, directly from your past lives or directly genetically from all of your ancestors. DNA, Brandon, is really kind of the key. I feel that people are missing in all forms. Your DNA is the information of you. And when you start working with DNA and start unlocking it, you got to think it's not like connecting different strands or activating different strands. It's more about unlocking almost like a computer code that starts reading more of the ones and zeros. And when you're reading more of that code, more of your conscious memory and your conscious cellular memory starts to become aware and awake in your conscious mind. Those are your past lives, your abilities, telekinesis, telepathy. I mean, there are people out there that can do telekinesis, and you know, those people have that kind of turned on. You can change your eye color, you can change your body structure. I mean, you can do everything with DNA. And one of my recent artworks that I put up on Facebook actually is that DNA one that I put up. That's actually very powerful if people meditate on it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's funny that you brought that up. I was noticing that, you know, we were talking about DNA earlier. One of the things that I found is that.
Thanks, Trex.
Do what?
No, I was thanking Trex there.
Anyway, so I was listening to Brother Beniti of Primal Chaos, and one of his older videos, and I don't remember which one, he was talking about, you know, that there's like a cell or something in the human body that if you're to be aware of it is to be able to warm the body up, to cool the body off. It does so many different things for the human body. Well, I took it a step further, and I realized real quickly that so we have cells in our body, right? Well, imagine that each cell is covered in a clear coat viscous liquid, kind of like how they talk about the pineal gland, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But instead of oil, it's a liquid. And from my own personal experience working with this for the last 2 years or so, I've come to find out that focusing on that liquid surrounding it is the key, because it acts like a womb for the DNA.
Yep.
This is through meditation and stuff. So, you know, this isn't something that like I have any concrete proof. I can direct anybody to a book on it or anything like that. But I went to realizing that not only could it, you know, like make me warm when I'm cold, or, you know, but it can act as like an extra shield for your aura, directly tied into your energy body. But then your energy body is also deeply tied into your DNA itself.
Yep.
And I use that exact same thing as a gateway to be able to work on the DNA. But once again, I think that if you're going to mess with something like that, you do have to have some form of higher guidance with that.
Right. Or incredible intent and open understanding. You know, it's cool about DNA because, you know, like we were talking earlier before we went live, all the information is stored on the etheric body. You know, the etheric body is like the encoding of the physical body. So all the DNA information is on the etheric body. Now, what your physical transducer strand in the body is picking up on is very minute for most people, you know, and going in and working with DNA, you can activate a lot of these kind of things. And it's really cool because the knowledge of self that you get is generally directly to you. You know, it's pertaining to your genetic makeup as a whole. You definitely start knowing yourself at a soul level rather than a human level, you know, a person level. It changes reality a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember a lot of my past lives. And, you know, the thing is that people get up, you know, really attached to past lives. Like, oh, I want to know what I was in a past life. And it's not always a good thing. You know, me knowing a lot of them wasn't a good thing at first. It kind of creates almost like a disassociation at first.
Yeah. Brandon's asking us, look up Optune. It is a device that through electric frequency confuses cancer cells and keep them or whatever to keep them from splitting and eating good brain cells. Could a device be made to work with DNA?
Yes, Brandon. In fact, you know, as conspiracy as it sounds, there's some research out from some scientists out in Russia that have been working with stuff like that. They're not using exactly like sound frequencies, but they're using light frequencies, and they're infusing the DNA, and they're able to regrow cells and regrow limbs. And this is a very hidden science that's happening in Russia right now that is very hush hush. So yeah, it can be made, and they definitely do have it.
You know, I'm glad you talked about this, and I'm glad you're explaining that. I've noticed that there are a lot of things coming out of Russia that's, you know, hush hush hidden, and sometimes I've looked up and found different experiments that I've seen people trying. I absolutely agree with the wavelengths of light and how it's used to work that. That would be neat as shit to see like a bodysuit or something that emits those waves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that could be programmed.
Yep.
That now that would be neat as shit to see.
Yeah, and electrical frequency works with it too. I mean, I would definitely say light works better than the electrical frequencies. Electrical, I mean, yeah, it's gonna work, but I don't know. Light's just in a sense a more pure thing.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think that through meditation alone and through, like for example, I could see doing this genetic DNA manipulation using some of the techniques in your book. I mean, I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's a viable thing? And you know, maybe one day we can, you know, come up with something on that, you know, or maybe that would be a great book for you to write on, you know, because I know that you're not the kind. You're like me. You're not going to be an armchair theorist. You're not going to sit there and just, you know, throw ideas into a book and call it fact. You know, you're like me. You're going to kind of like, you know, you're going to do the work. You've probably already done the work. I wouldn't be scared to say that.
No, I've done a lot of that. I'm not going to say. I mean, I definitely try to follow the book as clear as day, you know, myself. But you know, I'm just starting to now get back on the diet part. You know, a diet is covered in the book. It's really strict. So I'm just starting to get back on that diet, and it's a diet that was kind of handed down. And through research, I realized how good it was. And it was something I did a long time ago and had great results with, and a lot of people would benefit from it. It's just all around health. But yeah, it's going to be, you know, there's a lot to it.
So Roar asked a very interesting question. Why is it that when someone etherically projects, they take more matter or weight out of the body than when astral projection? My answer for that one, and I'm going to let John, is because etheric manipulation or etheric projection, anything like that, the etheric plane is a much denser plane on the astral.
Correct. Yep, that's the answer there, sir.
Oh, well, I wasn't trying. I was going through my. I
would have answered the same exact way. The whole sensing you had a very bad experience with a particular dark entity. At one time, I did have some pretty bad experiences with some dark energies, but kind of made its amends. But at one point, yeah, I was going through quite some psychic attacks.
Oh yeah. So what? Getting back to your book. How did you settle in on Eons of the Press? And
you know, when my guidance said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of it," and it just kind of happened. I was just like gonna roll with it. I was just talking to him the other day, and I was like, "It's just funny how this all rolled out," you know. And Sophia Press is amazing. They made the process super easy, and the quality and the amount of work they put in and the amount of dedication. They're much more than a publishing company. They're definitely it's like a partner. It's definitely like we're having a partner. And I was told that before. And you know, you can be told things all day long, but until you experience it, you know, it's.
How are they connected to Miskatonic Books?
What's that? Oh, they're the only currently the only USA reseller.
Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking, is that Eons of the Press was like the EU and Miskatonic was the United States based.
No. No, they're just allowed to sell Eons of the Press books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure they have a little thing. I don't know the whole story. I'm not going to get into their thing, but yeah, I mean, I love Miskatonic Books. Big shout out to them. They've, you know, Larry knows he's hooked me up on a lot of books, and I was able to get a lot of books from him. So they take a lot of my money. Yeah, please feel free to add me on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you taking out time to do this, brother.
Yeah, man, I love doing these things.
For those out there unaware of this, so John's idea was that we do this on a day and in an hour of Jupiter, because my boy here, he's like that. He thinks on those levels because and we think of Jupiter as prosperity and all this other stuff, but when we take it to the next step of, vibrational rates, it says a lot towards the character and towards the message itself. If you had to describe your book as a message, what would it be? I mean, just simply put.
Self-empowerment, man. Like really, overall, it's full self-empowerment and realization of your highest potential, your highest energy level. I do call that Christ. I spell it differently. If people want to figure out why I spell it differently and vibrationally why it's differently, there's definitely a part in the book where they can find that out. I didn't explain it. I thought it'd be, if people really wanted to know why, there's definitely a vibrational reason to it. It's more pronounced Christ than it is Christ, but just so people understand, it's like a Christ consciousness, that Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Krishna consciousness, whatever you really want to call it. It's that unconditional aspect of consciousness before experience, really. So, I mean, it's all about self-empowerment, but it's also about learning how powerful you really are. And it's a workbook. I want people to use the hell out of it. They're pretty, they're very pretty. I can understand how people wouldn't want to open it and all that kind of stuff. And, I made sure there's a book ribbon in there so people can hold pages, because I feel it's going to be a workbook for people to constantly check. The Dream Dictionary in itself is wonderful reference. There's a whole section on numerology, vibrational aspects of certain colors. I mean, that's really what it's for. It's self-empowerment, that somebody has something to go to and have a reference book, but also a very large gnosis and practical application of, unique visualizations that maybe they don't know, they never heard of before. So really that's the message. It's an overall use book.
I like to think of magic and the occult as being one thing. You're talking about forces that go hand in hand with one another. Yeah, you would never cut off your right hand just because you call yourself a left-hand path practitioner. There are lots of times when I'm working with dense energies, darker energies, however you wish to describe or explain it. And I always find myself at a point where I'm like, this is so limited and so limiting. And, and I'll stop for just a second and I'll think on a deeper level, on a higher vibrational rate. And, and you have to bring it up a notch, it's kind of like bringing your A game, or, always growing, always becoming, always, improving, ascending, always evolving, so forth and so on. And, and I think that your book is going to be awesome in the aspect of, it can take anything from the beginner to the adept practitioner and remind, or to make someone aware of the fact that this is the basis of all of it.
Yeah.
Use this. Don't stick with just this, but, use this as the basis, because anything else that comes from that is evolution.
Right. And the thing is, it's not it can be applied to any practice, and that's what I call the law of one. Like me and you spoke on the law of one a lot, and anybody that follows me on Facebook, I post a lot of things that reference the law of one and certain quotes from certain books that are referencing law of one. And that's really what it is. There is no right or wrong. There is no light or dark. It's one. So you can take all this stuff and apply it to whatever practice you have. And that was really the overall intent of it. I didn't want to pigeonhole it. I didn't want to pigeonhole it to be like, oh, you only can use this if you're a Buddhist, or you only can use this if you're a Luciferian. Or it's practical stuff that every practitioner can use and apply to their life and to figure out themselves, especially the DNA stuff. There's not a lot of people doing DNA work. And the people that are doing DNA work, some of them are doing it right and some of them are doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to say that.
Well, you got to be fearless, man, and and the honesty and the integrity, and not only that, but dude, your work speaks volumes for itself. It doesn't need backup; it's its own backup.
Thank you.
And the strength and the power. I mean, it's like you can pick up a work, and within 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to know whether or not it's worth owning or having, or working or doing, just because, and brother, it's fucking awesome, man.
Yeah. And in the next books, I'll be writing other books eventually down the line. I already have one kind of laid out. But I'm definitely going to dive into more of that DNA stuff because it's really the key, and to me, when you look at all those Sumerian tablets and stuff with them holding the bag, and you look at the tarot card of the Fool with the bag on the rod, that bag to me symbolizes all the information and knowledge that is held within your DNA, and that is what you are constantly carrying around with you. And you have the key to unlock that bag and dive into that bag. And that is really what sets you from being human, from being your next level of evolution, is take over your own power again and overriding the programming and overriding the manipulation that's already been set in there at an etheric level by certain ET extraterrestrial entities that have paraded around for quite some time, screwing with things, either directly or overall. But once you have that power, I mean, that itself is the strongest thing of self-empowerment.
Yeah. Patchwork asks if he could incorporate the DNA magic with the Necronomicon. You can incorporate DNA magic with anything. It's not really, it can be referred to as magic because I understand you're talking about the Necronomicon magic, but DNA manipulation or DNA transmutation. I don't really know what word we'd probably use. Probably transmutation.
Good word.
Do what?
It's a good word.
So working on transmuting your DNA to a higher vibration can be underdone. Like for example, in John's book here, he'll have step by step of the breathing techniques, the visualizations, the rites, and all this other stuff. And you don't have to think of it as oh well, how does this coincide with my own personal workings? Whether you're working Goetia Necronomicon, whether you're working the Satanic Bible, whether you're working this, whether you're working that, it really doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Kind of think of it as a standalone basis to be able to evolve yourself to a higher vibration, so that when you go to do these other workings, that they become more empowered. Because think of it as a fresh battery, like you have power tools that have what are they called? The power supplies. You can switch them out. Well, after an hour of working with the battery that's on it, you go and you pop it out and you put a brand new one in and it's powered up. Well, think of it as the same way. So DNA transmutation works in that sense, but instead of it being like an interchangeable battery, think of it as being the true power core behind it. Think of it as the power source of your own core, your own star core, your own star self, the center point of self.
If anybody knows computer coding, imagine you are like a computer hard drive and you have an operating system. Your DNA is all that coding. And if you only have one program open and you're only working with Minesweeper or some weird game on your PC and you're not looking at the rest of your computer, there's a lot of code that you're denying and not working with. And it really, me working with DNA to a very deep level, it really much like a computer. And when you start working on that level, the reality of those astral dimensions to those higher dimensions, and you start working with those DNA, it starts to become very coded. And working with DNA, you literally start unfolding certain things about yourself. And some people will just go, whatever, it's happenstance, but any practitioner that actually knows what's happening, they know what's happening on an alchemical level. And to me, DNA work and all of that and ascending that information within you is really what people are talking about when they talk about the great plan of man to become more than human and all this stuff. It's really that activation of all that DNA information of your true self you know, your true being and all your life experience. You know, that is your Akashic self. And it's really cool because the DNA is the key. And that's what they just don't want to tell people.
Exactly. You know, it's like I often say that there aren't enough warnings with certain tomes or certain books or anything like that. You know, we were sitting here talking about, you know, reaching a higher vibrational rate. And, you know, and you were discussing about how, you know, your mind becomes open to these different things. It can almost be an overload of sorts. That's why I would suggest, you know, go with the exercises that John gives in his book. Because they're going to teach you how to systematically doing it without overloading your system. Because you go 3 or 4 days of feeling like you're wide open and something is downloading and it won't stop. At first, you're cool. You're like, yeah, I've tapped into a real source of real power here. But after 3 or 4 days, you're like, holy crap, it's got to slow down. It's got to stop. It's got to something. And in this sense, you know, this is where the breathing techniques, this is where the whole control of the mind comes into play, because you have to have control of your mind. It's like that's number one in the, you know, in magic in general. If you can't control your mind, you need to work on on exercises, techniques, whatever it takes to take control of your mind. You must command your mind.
Right. And you know, like we were talking again before the live show, we were talking about how like some of the more advanced ones, they can be kind of dangerous if the person's not right. And that's why I didn't put, you know, more and more of the advanced ones in this book. Because I think the basis of working with DNA first, it's something you really have to tread lightly with. It's not a joke. It's a real thing. So when you start working with it, you should start slowly and not just jump in head first, because a lot of things can be turned on or turned off, and it's not always the best. And about the ascension mechanics, yeah, I've thought about doing more videos. I used to do a lot of videos. About 10 years ago, I had very active websites and doing workshops and all this fun stuff. And I stopped doing that after a lot of infiltration from certain, you know, agencies and entities and psychic attacks. And it was a pretty interesting time. That was a time where a lot of this information wasn't really, you know, readily available or people talking about it. But yeah, I've definitely thought about doing some more videos, especially like certain meditation videos. And
we're going to open up the floor the next 5 minutes. If any of you have any questions before we get to the end of this, if you would go ahead and put your questions in now for John, so that he can answer as many of them as we can.
And I also want to say too, while people are putting their questions in, you know, on Sophia Press, we're going to do a kind of like a pre-release thing. So the pre-release sales, it's going to be 20% off the books, off the standard edition and then the deluxe edition. So 20% off. That's from April 12th to April 15th, and the pre-orders open up April 12th. So for 3 days, you can save 20%, and boom. Off of aeonsophiapress.com, and I think Miskatonic Books will have them too. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm sure Larry will grab them. Not speak for him, but I'm assuming Aeon Sophie Press. And also, you can buy it for me too. You can. I will have it on my website. My website I'm currently finishing. I had to kind of revamp it, and that'll have all my services and stuff like that on there too. Which a lot of the services will be actually DNA, you know, based.
In the description, like underneath where it says on the channel, the Black Tower, it says a discussion with John. Hit the show more. It gives you a link directly to a Aeon Sophia Press, exactly where to order it from.
And remember, I mean, it's not, pre-orders aren't open until the 12th of April. So definitely be on the lookout, and I'll be posting it, and Sophia Press will posting it. I'm sure, you know, I'm sure Waylon will be posting it.
Will.
There's a standard edition and a deluxe edition out right now. The deluxe edition's got this really pretty blue leather. I just was sent pictures of the actual leather, and it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And the devotee edition will eventually come out probably in the next, you know, few months. That one takes a lot longer because it is handmade, like from the whole thing. So.
Oh yeah, love you too, sister. Love you guys.
Books all have for sale. They will be signed and personalized. So.
Hey, so you actually are going to be signing them.
Yep.
Well, now see, there goes to help Soror because she was like she wanted a autograph copy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You get that from me. You know, you're not going to get that from Anne Sophia Press, but definitely, you know, get the pre-orders in. But yeah, my books, the author copies and stuff, will definitely have the signature and whatnot. But my YouTube channel, I really don't have a YouTube channel. What my handle is on here is my YouTube channel. I've uploaded one video, a video I made a long time ago. It's a root chakra video of a color and some tonal variations. But I plan on uploading more eventually.
Don't worry, I'll stay on him about getting his YouTube channel up.
Waylon's the first one to really get me out and doing videos in quite a long time. So.
And boy, am I proud of that one. You know, I've been able, like I said, I've been blessed, man. Like, you know, being able to get all these different people on here, you know, and I love the turnout. I mean, wow.
You know, you're doing a great job, man. I love what you're doing. Like,
I appreciate that.
It's amazing.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. But I think what you're doing is amazing. You know, that's why you're on here. Because I mean, you know, it's like I said, you know, let's get this out there. Let's show this to the people because I mean, this is not going to be your normal run-of-the-mill magic book. This is one that's like, you know, you really want your magic to pop? Here you go.
Right. It's an asset to all other things, really.
But no, John, I want to say thank you for being on here tonight, brother.
I'm curious on what patchwork means with please make videos on this.
Oh, I think he's talking about your book and in your concept.
Oh, sure.
And don't worry, y'all. I'm gonna keep on him until he gets him a YouTube channel going.
But yeah, people can feel free to add this handle. I'm sure it'll be under this one. My website will be thevioletgateway.com. That will be out probably in the next month. I just have some more finishing touches to put on it. And now that the book's a thing, I have to put that on there.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely urge people to definitely get the pre-orders in at Anne Sophia Press too, because you know it's 20% off is still nice.
Yeah, right. You know I'm on that list. But
yeah, they did a good job, man. I'm really happy to be part of that team. You know, 80 Mercers on, you know, part of them, and they have such a great roster. You know, Laval, that's great.
Oh yeah. But we're going to go ahead and wind this down because I don't want it to be too long. But to each of you out there, thank you very much for being here. And thank you very much for the input and the questions because I know, you know, John loves questions.
I do. Talking points. I can sit here and radiate things and maybe people will pick up on it. But when things are asked, it at least gives me a talking point to focus in on. Yeah, I appreciate everything. The turnout was great. I love the participation. It was a lot of fun. So we will definitely be doing this again.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, you're always welcome on here, brother. So, I mean, you know, as time permits and the way, you know, get this out and stuff, you know, we'll probably do another one, you know, later on. You know, not too soon after, but, you know, just before, you know, it comes out and stuff, you know, and just, you know, or maybe just a little bit later and get the vibe and see what people think or feel about it, you know.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, go on Facebook, find John. The link is in the description.
I'm very approachable. You know, that's one thing, you know, that I've always kind of held myself in regard. I'm pretty approachable. So, I mean, I'm always down to talk. I'm always down to chit chat. You know, people do hit me up for services. I do offer services. If that is interested to you, you can definitely hit me up. And I do have a PDF. I don't publicly release it. So, and I do a lot of custom stuff too. So, I mean, there's always ways, but I'm always down to talk. I'm not going to, you know, shy away from talking open discussion with somebody.
Yeah, because, you know, that's one thing is that John does offer actual services, you know, so just check out the description below, you know, find them on Facebook, you know, send them friends request, message them, let them know you saw them on here or wherever, and just, you know, start dialogue with my brother here because he's pretty fucking awesome.
Thanks,
and that being said and done, thank each and every single one of you for being here, for making the Black Tower what the Black Tower is, you know, and for, you know, and sitting here and supporting my boy John, you know, appreciate that very much. And until next time, peace, blessings, and power. And John, do you have anything you want to say?
Not at all. I want to just thank everybody for coming out and see you guys later. I appreciate it.
All right. So till next time.